Hello, and welcome back to the Diogenes Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Willingham, and together we will chew our way through Wokistan in search of an honest man, or woman, or they, them. I'm just kidding. There's nothing honest about any of that. Today on the Diogenes Podcast, I'm going to share an excerpt from my forthcoming book, formerly titled Emphatic Caprices, now newly rechristened A Wokework Orange. This chapter is an examination of my own personal value set and is entitled, I Know You Are, But What Am I? As always, I open with a quote. What's extraordinary and appalling about the past 4 decades of our history is that our politics have been dominated by 2 ideologies that encourage and even celebrate the unmaking of citizens. Mark Lilla, The Once and Future Liberal, 2017. I am not a conservative, nor am I an apologist for Trump and his ilk. I always have been and remain committed to the values and principles of liberalism, with a previously left-leaning tendency now course-corrected toward the radical center. On policy, I am decidedly non-binary. Good ideas, practical facts, and their applications are not exclusive to one party or one section of the political spectrum. The sad fact is that they are sometimes elusive for all parties, which is why course correction is built into our constitutional republic. The American historian and political scientist Mark Lilla, in the preface to his excellent study, The Reckless Mind, Intellectuals in Politics, ponders how we are able to explain the fact that in addition to those thinkers openly complicit in the crimes of oppressive regimes in the 20th century, quote, a chorus for tyranny has also existed in countries where intellectuals faced no danger and were free to write as they pleased, end quote. It may be unsurprising, while remaining inexcusable, that this has happened on the political right, where, quote, countless national liberation movements became traditional tyrannies, end quote. But, as Lilla notes, it has also happened on the European and the American left, in which, quote, Western liberal democracy was portrayed in diabolical terms as the real home of tyranny, the tyranny of capital, of imperialism, of bourgeois conformity, of metaphysics, of power, even of language, end quote. Decrying the systematic tyrannies of both fascism and communism, Lilla observes that the 20th century gave birth to a new social type, the quote-unquote philo-tyrannical intellectual, who has proved invaluable to the advancement of each system and servicely apologetic for them on command. I submit that this is treacherously ongoing throughout the woke Anglosphere as the ideology of critical social justice and its applied postmodernist fallacies remain institutionally ascendant. I have myself participated in enabling this process, at least to such limited extent as my meager academic position would allow. That I did so with good intentions in no way justifies the insufficiently examined and presumptive moral authority that propelled my actions, especially in the classroom. At this point, the best I might hope for is the course correction of my own values and political positions through a careful revising of my priors, and, if possible, to encourage others to do the same, which is the raison d'etre of my larger Diogenes project, and this, the Diogenes Podcast. So with this in mind, I will clarify my revised positions in some specific political domains. Diversity. I support opportunities for the merit-based success of all individuals without regard to race, sex, sexuality, or other immutable characteristics. Talent, effort, and expertise should be well rewarded whenever and by whomever they are offered in good faith. I oppose DEI policies and trainings and the critical race theory that underlies them, along with grievance groups focusing on so-called white guilt and so-called progressive stacking that seeks to center or elevate minority voices in educational, professional, political, and media environments to redress historic wrongs, or more accurately, to turn a profit through virtue signaling. People should be valued for the practical worth of their contributions, not the political cachet of their identities and their histories, real or imagined. If race, ethnicity, lineage, or phenotype should not be used to exclude people or explain disparities in outcome or performance, then they should not be used to confer social advantage. Meritocracy is the best and fairest solution to bigotry because it gives the lie to notions of race, sex, or class-based competencies. George Washington Carver, Marie Curie, Alan Turing, and Michael Faraday are shining exemplars. Those are a black man, a woman, a gay man, and a lower class man, for those unfamiliar with these names. Likewise, past injustices suffered by groups should not be used to adjust opportunities and outcomes for individuals in the present, especially at the expense of those innocent of any involvement in any such history. To do so is to set up an infinite regress of grievances in which everyone can claim the rights of victimhood without the responsibilities of self-improvement. This is cognitive behavioral therapy in reverse, the unintended consequences of which, as Daniel Patrick Moynihan cautioned in his 1965 report to the U.S. Senate, falls hardest on those we intend to save. This conduces to a weak, fragile, emotionally unstable society for everyone, along with an unstaunchable hemorrhaging of talent across all groups. Equity. I support fair treatment and respect for all individuals and a shared commitment to the cultural values and the constitutional principles that uphold and protect the inalienable rights of men, women, and children in our polity. Everyone deserves a fair chance and a reasonable opportunity to flourish and freely pursue happiness as the earned outcome of responsibilities willingly assumed and capably fulfilled. I oppose the concept of equity, which conflates equality of opportunity with equality of outcome. Institutional equity policies function as a Trojan horse, smuggling often unqualified people into positions for which they are unsuited at the expense of more accomplished candidates who are excluded on the basis of their identities. This is, by definition, a form of bigotry, one excused in the name of critical social justice. There is a vast difference between striving to earn everything that is earnable and believing one deserves everything there is. The concept of equity is built from and perpetuates dichotomous thinking, either or, have not, oppressor, oppressed, etc. Emphasis is always on group identity, and empathy is always applied selectively to some groups, typically minorities, outsiders, and the pathological, and entails a corresponding hostility to other groups, typically the majority, the successful, and the exceptional. Operating within a neo-Marxist framework, there is a perceived necessary redistribution of what are presumed to be limited cultural funds for empathy, moral equality, and social opportunity. This is predicated on distortions and thought-terminating cliches, claiming that, quote, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, end quote. That all undesirable outcomes are the result of systemic oppression, i.e., disparate impact, and that any form of group or individual success is achieved only by depriving others. All of these presuppositions are ideologically motivated and demonstrably untrue. Inequality is not itself morally objectionable. What is unacceptable is poverty. It is neither possible nor necessary that everyone should have the same amount of anything. What is imperative is that everyone should have enough. Equity policies carry out precisely the exclusionary identity-driven practices they are claimed to oppose. Far from leveling the playing field, this ideological manipulation of outcomes perpetuates struggle, conflict, and opposition, an intentional and very well-articulated goal of Marxist revolutionary praxis. Replacing meritocracy with mediocrity is a recipe for cultural disaster, as less qualified and in some cases flatly incompetent people assume important positions in industry, education, law, and government to complete an ideological checklist. Socially promoted doctors, engineers, pilots, and policymakers will eventually give the tragic lie to the Lysenkoism of equity. Inclusion. I recognize the distinction between outmoded norms and the present tense needs of marginalized groups, to such extent that members should not be limited by past or present misconceptions about their worth and capacities, nor unfairly hindered in the pursuit of their potential. This is predicated on a good faith acknowledgement of real social progress and maintaining an ongoing commitment to it. I oppose therapeutic safetyism that weaponizes past injustices and elevates the often imaginary or distorted present tense concerns of minorities and special identity groups above the concerns and best interests of the shared cultural norms of the majority, which includes many with minority identities who have succeeded on their own merits without any special accommodations. I likewise oppose politically expedient apologetics and policies derived from them that deny or ignore the fact of actual differences between individuals, which sometimes register at the level of the group. Many such differences are meliorable. Some may not be. The Oppression Olympics have become the paradigm within which all cultural contributions, performances, and outcomes are now measured. The more marginalized or oppressed the history of one's group, the more sanctified one is in the present, and the more entitled one is to be moved to the head of the line. This is an unqualified disaster because it registers only deficits, not progress, and is motivated by resentment, not alacrity. It commits the attribution error of blaming systems for disparities in individual outcomes long after structural corrections have been made to establish a universal standard for achievement. It also renorms standards of privilege in a new quasi-religious ideological hierarchy in which the last shall be first, which not only confers unearned benefits and status on unqualified individuals, but destabilizes the social and institutional order in which the best and brightest minds can fulfill their potential. This harms the culture as a whole, and especially those groups meant to benefit from such systemic inversions and social promotions. Everybody may be good at something, but nobody is good at everything. Hierarchies exist through self-sorting, not just authoritarian fiat. Everybody knows who the A students are in a classroom, and if they do not, that is reason enough for them not to receive high marks themselves, to say nothing of eliminating evaluations and prerequisites altogether to mask their inadequacy. Performance hierarchies, learning curves, and the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune will always obtain and naturally separate people into groups. What is important is that this is not ever a measure of the moral or emotional worth of individuals or of the meaning that can be made of their lives. In fact, the best janitor is more valuable than the worst doctor, and cleaning up bullshit is a job that will always need qualified candidates. Thank you for your service. Remember, if you enjoy the content on the Diogenes podcast, please like and subscribe and tell your friends to join the pack. Also, share your thoughts in the comments section, but do so respectfully. We believe in free speech here on the Diogenes podcast, but slurs are not arguments, and trolling is not a meaningful contribution to discourse. Besides, that's my fucking job. So, until next time, I'm Chris. Thanks for joining me.